Hi, Sally. I just make a hexagon sticker with RNG plot too. Here.
So cool. I love the puppy on the sticker. Did you also use Photoshop or Sketch?
No, just 3 lines of R codes. You can try out the new package hex sticker on GitHub. Curtis wrote a blog post called, "Why My Dad Went From Programming to Driving a Bus." He wrote, "Programmers, or those who write code regularly, love talking about programming languages. No one would question how important programming languages are in general, but many love to compare the popularity and merit of languages in use."
His dad was a computer programmer, writing COBOL code. They had a decent middle class living through life. Unfortunately, his dad did not expand skills. COBOL was losing popularity. Dad thought that knowing a rare language was an asset, but being proficient only in a rare language turned out to be a liability.
Dad did eventually realize this. He tried participating in a training program offered by the State Department of Workforce Services, but the company they hired for the training was, well, terrible. Dad didn't learn anything. The conclusion of the story: Curtis's dad is a bus driver now. He's kept looking for computer programming work, and bought a book on Java, but the life of the poor is hard, and bus driving schedules coupled with living paycheck to paycheck makes learning programming hard, especially without a decent computer.
As much as people like to talk about the features of this or that programming language and how that makes them better or worse, one of the key factors that determines what language will be used in a project is its existing user base. One reason why the user base matters is it determines how easy we can use that programming language to find answers to questions.
If healthcare analysts prefer R, you will likely find lots of high-quality R packages for healthcare-related applications, while if data scientists prefer Python, you can expect lots of excellent machine learning packages for Python.
I really love the idea in the blog post about learning to learn.
Yeah. What's more important than learning any particular programming language is learning how to learn programming languages. If there are 2 popular programming languages in a field, say, R and Python, it will be a good idea to learn both. Learning lots of programming languages is surprisingly easy. Eventually, familiar patterns appear that makes learning new languages easier. A broad skill set is more valuable than a narrow skill set. Jeff Leake wrote a blog about the levels of data science class. To be self-sufficient as a data scientist, you need to be able to work with real-world data. You not only need to learn those data science tools, but also need to come up with your own questions and answer them using data. The ability to translate murky questions into data answers is hugely valuable.
In the latest episode of Not So Standard Deviations, Hillary and Roger discuss Stitch Fix's massive algorithms tour, reproducibility from a physical scientist perspective, and interpretability in machine learning.
This episode is super interesting. I am so surprised by the perspective of reproducibility from those physical scientists.
Metrum Research Group publish an example book about Slicker package, rendering canonical interactive user manuals.
And there are one great tutorial from Michael Clark, about generalized additive models, and another tutorial about graphical and latent variable modeling. A new package called MathPick from Jonathan Carroll can help you convert images of mathematical equations to LaTeX for inclusion in Markdown documents.
In this week's R project updates.
When the condition code in, if, or while, is not of length 1, an error instead of a warning may be triggered by setting an environment variable.
strwrap function reduces indent if it is more than half width rather than giving an error.
RCMD config gains a all option for printing names and values of all basic configure variables. It now knows about all the variables used for the C++98, C++11 and C++14 standards.
There is support for compiling C++14 or C++17 code in packages on suitable platforms. See writing R extensions for how to request this.
Sample function now uses 2 uniforms for added precision when the uniform generator is GnuthTauCP, GnuthTauCP 2002, or a user-defined generator, and the population size is 2 power 25 or greater.
New configure tests for a C++17 compliant compiler. The tests are experimental and subject to change in the future.
There are more interesting content in our Weekly website. Our Weekly is on Twitter, Facebook, and Patreon. Subscribe to our Weekly podcast with your podcast app. Follow us on YouTube to get the latest podcast updates. You can send us feedback on About page. Submit podcast segment with Submit page. That is all of this week's podcast. See you next week.
See you next week.